The streets have eyes, and every move is watched. Power is never given, it's taken, fought for, and sometimes lost in a heartbeat. Kanan has learned that every decision has a cost. And the deeper you go, the harder it becomes to escape though. Life you were born into. This is the story of ambition, loyalty, and betrayal. The game is getting bigger, and nothing will ever be the same. Kanan's journey has never been easy. From the moment he stepped into the streets, he learned that survival meant more than just staying alive. It meant making choices that could either build an empire or destroy it. Each day brought new dangers, shadows waiting around every corner, and the constant reminder that trust was a luxury he could not afford as he walked through the city streets. The neon lights reflected off the wet asphalt, casting long shadows that mirrored the challenges he faced. The faint hum of distant traffic mixed with the whispers of deals and threats that filled the alleyways, a constant soundtrack to his life. Every glance over his shoulder reminded him that enemies were everywhere, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment to strike. Kanan had learned to read people before they even spoke. The tilt of a head, the twitch of a hand, the flicker in someone's eyes, these small signals were life or death in his world. He had to be clever, calculating, always one step ahead, because one mistake could end everything he had worked for. His rise was not about luck. It was about understanding the game better than anyone else. The streets had taught him patience, taught him that power was earned through respect, fear, and the right alliances. Every handshake was more than a greeting, it was a test. Every conversation held hidden meanings. In this world, weakness was a scent, and Kanan had trained himself to never show it. Even as he climbed higher, the weight of responsibility pressed down on him. He was not just protecting himself, he was protecting everyone who depended on him. And the lines between loyalty and survival blurred with each passing day. Friends could become enemies overnight, and allies were only useful as long as they served a purpose. Decisions that seemed small could trigger a chain reaction, leading to chaos he could not control. Nights were the hardest. Alone in his apartment, looking out over the city, he could feel the pressure of every choice he had made. Each mistake, each triumph, each betrayal etched into his mind, shaping him into the man he had become. He had ambitions, yes, but they came with sacrifices he could never undo. Kanan's story is one of contrasts, the harshness of the streets against the loyalty of those who stood by him. The thrill of power against the fear of losing it all. The quiet moments of reflection against the constant roar of the city that never slept. His empire was growing, but so were the threats. Rivalry simmered beneath the surface, ready to boil over. The higher he rose, the more dangerous his world became, and the more he realized that power was never just about what you could take, it was about what you could survive. Every step, every decision, every shadow that moved in the corner of his eye was part of the game he had to win. And Kanan knew better than anyone that in this city, you either rise with power or fall into oblivion. The streets had rules, and one of the most dangerous was knowing who to trust. Kanan had learned early that loyalty was fragile, often disguised as friendship or business. Every ally had a motive, and every smile could hide a knife. The people who stood beside him one day could turn against him the next. And the weight of knowing this pressed heavily on his shoulders. Deals were made in whispers, in shadowed corners, in places where the city's lights barely reached. The air always carried tension, the sense that someone was watching, judging, waiting. Kanan had grown sharp, his instincts honed to detect deceit before it could manifest. But even the most cautious strategies could be upended by greed, fear, or revenge. New faces began to appear, people who claimed to want the same things he did, promising support and opportunities. They spoke with confidence, wore tailored suits, and moved with the aura of someone who had earned respect. Yet Kanan knew better than to believe appearances. Power was never shared freely. He watched carefully, measured their words, studied their movements. Even a casual gesture could reveal hidden intentions. Every handshake, every smile, every offer was scrutinized under the cold lens of survival. These alliances were tools, and Kanan had learned to wield them without losing control of himself. But the streets had a way of testing even the strongest. Grip on power, and soon cracks began to form in the relationships he thought were solid. Betrayal was never allowed. It came in subtle shifts, in the quiet choices that undermined trust. Kanan noticed the glances exchanged behind closed doors, the delayed messages, the sudden absence when support was needed most. It was a constant puzzle. A dangerous game where one wrong move could dismantle everything he had worked to build. Even those closest to him carried secrets, and the line between friend and foe blurred with every passing day. Kanan had become a master of observation, reading intentions like an open book. Yet he knew the city had a way of surprising even the sharpest minds. Trust had to be earned, tested, and never taken for granted. As alliances shifted, Kanan felt the tension ripple through his world. He saw rivalries flare unexpectedly, whispers of deals made behind his back, and the subtle signs of betrayal that could ignite conflict at any moment. The streets were a living entity, unpredictable and unforgiving, and every action set off consequences that could be immediate or delayed, visible or hidden. Kanan understood that power was never just about control. It was about anticipation, foresight, and the willingness to act before the enemy realized they were threatened. Every alliance was a chess move, every relationship a test, and every betrayal a reminder that in this city, loyalty was fragile and survival demanded vigilance. The game of power was not won in a single battle, but in the careful orchestration of relationships, the subtle manipulation of allies and adversaries alike. Kanan's rise depended on knowing when to push forward, when to pull back, and when to let others reveal their true intentions on their own. He navigated the shifting tides of loyalty with precision, balancing ambition with caution, always calculating the risks and rewards. The city was a stage, each person a player, and Kanan had to perform with both confidence and wariness. Any mistake could trigger a chain reaction, threatening his empire and his life. Yet in this constant tension, Kanan found clarity, a sharper understanding of who truly belonged at his side and who was waiting for the moment to take it all away. The city never slept, and neither did the dangers that lurked in every alley, behind every corner, and in every shadowed building. Kanan had learned to move fast, to think faster, and to expect the unexpected. Nights were no longer just hours of darkness. They were battlefields filled with the hum of engines, the sharp echoes of footsteps, and the distant shouts that could signal a fight breaking out anywhere. Every mission, every deal, every confrontation carried the potential to explode in chaos. Kanan thrived in the storm, but even he knew that one misstep could cost everything he had built. The streets demanded more than courage. They demanded instinct, precision, and the ability to anticipate every move before it happened. Gunfire cracked through the air like a signal that nothing was certain. In that nothing was safe, Kanan ducked behind walls, his eyes scanning the scene, calculating, ready to act. Tires screeched in narrow streets as cars moved too fast to be controlled, chasing or fleeing, the tension rising with every passing second. He felt the weight of each decision pressing down on him, knowing that hesitation could turn a fleeting advantage into a permanent disaster. Every face in the crowd could be a threat. Every shadow could hide a rival waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In these moments, Kanan's world became a blur of motion, adrenaline, and sound, a controlled chaos where only the sharpest survived. The stakes grew higher with every encounter. Kanan found himself in situations where trust was tested in real time, where allies could be cornered and enemies struck without warning. Explosions lit the streets, brief bursts of fire illuminating the determination in his eyes, the grit of his allies, and the ruthlessness of his adversaries. Each movement was calculated, precise, necessary. He had trained for this life, prepared for the violence, and yet the unpredictability of the city constantly challenged him. The rush of adrenaline was intoxicating, but it was never enough to distract him from the reality that survival was temporary, fragile, and earned moment by moment. Even in the chaos, strategy remained Kanan's greatest weapon. He moved not just with force, but with intent, predicting reactions, creating diversions, and controlling outcomes where others could only react. Every action had a consequence, and he exploited them with surgical precision. Rivalries ignited. In seconds, alliances broke down under pressure, and the slightest miscalculation could cost him more than just territory, it could cost his life. High-speed chases through neon-lit streets, rooftop confrontations under the glow of city lights, sudden ambushes in abandoned warehouses, all of it formed the dangerous rhythm of his life. The tension was relentless. Each heartbeat matched the pulse of the city, each decision amplified by the stakes at hand. Kanan's empire was no longer just about control, it was about dominance, survival, and sending a message to anyone who dared to challenge him.